Beautiful. Thank you. That's my talk. Thank you very much for coming. We are divine. And all we have to say is use that divine self of me, use my divinity to express into the world. Just happens to be that's what today's talk is about. You think we talked ahead of time or something. Beautiful. Thank you, Holly. Good morning again. So our talk title today, as we work with this idea of creating a world that works for all, is what is mine to do? What is mine to do? And it's the first time in 5 months we've talked about do. We've been deep in consciousness. What is mine to be? What is mine to come into awareness of? And so finally, with all this preparation, all this going deeper, what is mine to do? And this comes out of the Global Heart Vision that says we see a world in which we are called to conscious action. It's not enough to just be, right? Or to know. We're here to be doers of the word. We're here to take that and put that into form. Paul in his letter to James reminds James that faith without works is dead. I know we've all heard that before. Faith without works is dead. Ernest Holmes says if we're praying for something and we don't expect it and see that it is happening, then our prayer is just superstition. If we're praying for lower blood pressure and we don't check our blood pressure, our prayer is just superstition. We're just hoping it's going to happen. Okay. So we also have a saying in religious science that goes, because our affirmative prayer process is called spiritual mind treatment, and so we say that we treat. And what we say is we treat and then we move our feet. Treat and move your feet. So we're going to look at that today because sometimes we get caught between this idea of, should I be in consciousness, meditating and contemplating? Should I be working on myself? Or should I be doing something in action? You may have noticed that there's a lot of people in the world today who like to do action, right? Fire, aim. Oh, let me get ready. Instead of ready, aim, fire, right? We besides me, anybody? You know? And so it's interesting because we take actions. You know, I'm a typical guy. I jump into things and try to build things, and then I go back and say, oh, what were the directions? Where were the directions again? How to assemble the things. So we oftentimes do that. The invitation is to go within, and then from that guidance within to work without. It's a yin-yang energy, if you will, from the Taoist yin-yang symbol. And so we need to spend time in the yin. We need to get directions. We need to spend that time listening to spirit within, to remember, as the song says, that we are divine. Because if we don't remember that we are divine, if we're not acting from that consciousness of divinity, we're going to add more of what we don't want into what's showing up in the outside. But then we also have to move into the yang energy, the taking action energy, and move that form into expression, because otherwise nothing happens. Nothing happens. So we're looking at this, and so this idea that we're taking action with consciousness. Taking it without consciousness is non-productive, because I don't know about you, but I bring some baggage to my life. Anybody kind of relate, and we just spent some time in the workshops with Karen and Jane looking at what we called our money baggage, which money is only the label, because as she says, it's the thread that unlinks the whole life. And so a whole lot of people are sitting there going, this isn't about money, this is about my whole life. As we start to look at what is our baggage that we carry with us and start to let that go and to transform and create something else. So if we bring our baggage into our action and we don't clear that out first, then it just worsens the problem, because we start to act from fear, we start to act from anger, we start to act out of our hurt. And we try to correct things based on that. We've all met people, we've all been people. I remember in the late 60s, early 70s, I was one of those people who was out there protesting the Vietnam War. And I watched a whole lot of people being angry and at war about the war. Right? Did it create more peace and more love? No. It just created more conflict and more unhappiness and more war. So if we're not listening to that spirit within, if we're not getting in touch with our own divinity first and then acting from this, we're not acting holistically. Spirit sees holistically. And when we're acting in alignment with that, it sees inclusively, holistically. It allows us to be a part of the solution without having to effort really hard at it and without having to fight and struggle and bring our stuff. When we bring our stuff, we bring our energy, it perpetuates that same energy. And so when we arrive at where we want to go, where we think we want it to go, it looks just the same as where we come from. The Who had a song about that called Don't Get Fooled Again, and I love the favorite closing line, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. If we bring the same consciousness to the problem, we're going to create the same thing over and over and over again. We've noticed this on national political level. We've noticed this on our lives in every small detail of our lives. There's a story that some of you may have heard of a man who's sitting outside the walls of a city gate, and a traveler comes by and he says, I'm thinking about, I'm looking for a new place to live. What kind of a place is this? And the man says, well, what kind of a place was it where you came from? And he says, oh, it's not very nice people. They're pretty mean. They steal stuff. They're backbiting and gossipy. And the man sitting at the gate says, you'll find the same kind of people here. About an hour later, another traveler comes by and he says, what kind of people live here? And the man asks him, what kind of people live where you were? And he says, wonderful, kind people. They're really helpful. They're generous. They're really there for you. And he says, you'll find the same kind of people here. And so wherever we go, there we are. We take our consciousness, our belief system, our atmosphere, if you will, with us. And so if we're not doing something to shift the atmosphere, to listen to Spirit, to listen to our true divine nature, then we're just going to bring more and more and more of who I am, but not really am, not the real self, okay, but who I think that I am, who I believe that I am with me. So we want to take the time to clear that out. On the other hand, if we sit and work only in consciousness, and it's so comfortable, isn't it? Just to sit in meditation. You probably want me to finish this talk, right? This morning was so wonderful to sit in meditation. Lie in meditation on my meditation cushion, also known as the bed. We want to bring something out. We're here to express Spirit as well as tune into Spirit. Because if we just sit in consciousness only, it brings nothing into the world. And we can be at peace with it, but it doesn't bring the joy and the essence of who you and I are into this world if we just sit and watch it, and if we just sit and contemplate it. So we're here to express Spirit. Moses, when he stood in front of the burning bush, at one point in time turned away. I don't want to look at this. How many of you have, the burning bush represents the call, right? That little voice that's calling us. I know I have. It's like, I don't want to hear that right now. I know I should, but, and he's sitting there, you don't want me. I stutter. I got a record. I killed a guy. You want my brother. He's the good kid. How many of us always know that there's somebody else who should be doing it, not us, right? And so, but God calls him and he says, but I want you to go talk to Pharaoh and tell him to stop doing what he's doing. We are called to action. We are called by Spirit to not just know Spirit, to not just sit in the burning bush or with the burning bush, but to then get up and go move, to move our feet, to take action. Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is sitting in the middle of the battlefield, and he's looking at the people that he's got to fight, which are his relatives, friends, and teachers. And he's looking at the people who are there to fight with him, to support him, and he's there to defend. And there are his other family, teachers, friends. And he's caught between this rock and the hard place. He loves them all. He doesn't want to see this bloodbath happen. And so he literally sits down in the middle of the battlefield and says, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do this. And Krishna, his treasurer, hi Deb, his charioteer, the guy who's driving him around, and who is actually God in form, looks at him and says, but you have to take action. This is your call in the world. This is your path that you're here to walk. You are here in the Indian consciousness. You are here in the warrior class. You are here to be this. And the blessing can't happen if you don't take the action, because there's a blessing going to come out of this. There's a blessing that's going to come out of this. It may look like a frustrating action. It may look like it's going nowhere. You may not understand it. But I have to take this Spirit-guided action to do this in order to have the blessing manifest for all. Last Sunday we talked about the idea of Pentecost. And it was the Sunday where it's the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles, the disciples. And it doesn't say that the Spirit descended upon the disciples and in the upper room, and then they said, wow, man, that was great. That felt so good. Let's do it again. Let's just stay here for another 10 days and meditate and pray and see what else happens, man. No, they got up and did what? They got up and preached the word. They got up and moved out into expression, into expressing them. Ed Brewer was telling me after the first service, he says there's a legend that it was actually Mary Magdalene who kicked them into action, said, you guys get out of here and go preach the word. I don't know if that's true. It ain't written in the Bible, but who knows. But something moved them into form. When we listen to Spirit, when we allow it to come through us, it carries with us naturally its own action, its own motivation, and it's almost like we have to move. We have to do something. Yesterday and the last weekend at the workshop, Karen and Jane said, if you just take this and don't do anything with it, it's a nice weekend. It's been just a nice weekend. Do something. Take an action. How are you going to take what you have discovered, what you have unfolded, and move it into specific action in your life? Now, we had to each commit to doing something, actually two things, at least two things, to embody that, to take that into form and action. So we have to, if we're going to be the expressions of Spirit, if we are going to allow the Word to be made flesh, because we are the conduits through which that Word is made flesh, if we are going to allow ourselves to be that conduit for Spirit, to truly be open, then we have to also, as we listen, take action and follow it. What I find when I take spiritual action is that it's generally on a certain level easy. There's something within me that feels at peace and in alignment. I may not always understand it. One of the things we talked about yesterday was we take steps. We take steps and we don't always see where we're going. If you were going to drive from here to New York City, could you tell me everything that was going to happen to you all the way from here to New York City ahead of time? No, we don't know. But if we decide that our calling is to drive to New York City, we walk out to the parking lot, we get in our car, we push the start button, we make sure there's gas in it and the car's ready to go, and we go. We start, not knowing what's going to happen down the road. Right? So we listen to Spirit, and we take the step that's in front of us. And this, many of us like this. I'm so guilty of this. Many of us like this. I want my ducks all in a row. I want to be able to see the outcome before I start, and I want to have a guarantee. Thank you very much. If I do this, this will be the outcome. Okay? Anybody? The outcome is often different even than we want, but it catches the essence of what we want. Karen and Jane were talking with me last night, and they shared that they have this relationship habit, which is a great habit, by the way, of having, what's it called, secret dates? Secret dates with each other. Which, if you've been married for a long time, take this on. This is a really good practice. And so one of them will tell the other, every couple of weeks, it's like, I'm going to take you out on a secret date. This is the time, this is when you need to be available, this is how you should be dressed for the date, so you have a clue. You don't want to show up to go to the beach in an evening dress. At least I'm told that you don't want to. This is how you dress, but, this is what we're going to do, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You ever notice that life is like that? You listen to Spirit, it says, this is where I want you to go, this is what I want you to wear, and I'm not going to tell you what it's about. And Karen was going to take Jane to this fabulous French restaurant in Carmel that she had raved about for a long time. And things changed along the process, along the day, and they ended up having this fabulous late lunch at a wonderful restaurant in Carmel. And by the time the dinner time was supposed to come along, they were still full from the late lunch in Carmel. Right? And so I never went to the French restaurant. And so Karen was feeling a little bit off about that. until she realized, and Jane reminded her, we had the secret date. It was just a few hours earlier than we expected it to be in at a slightly different location. We had a fabulous meal together. We're both deeply satisfied by the process. And that's how spirit works. It's oftentimes, it looks different than what I want it to be. I remember I had an old friend of mine who, it was so frustrating to watch this person, because they would put out, I want my good, and I wanted specifically this specific good, and I wanted this specific way. And the good would flood into this person from all around, and they would, nope, not that. I want it this way, here, my way. And here's this good just practically dumping on them, practically knocking them over the head. No, that's not it. I want it here, okay? We have to let go. As we take the action, this is the reading that I love, we have to be unconcerned with the results. The Buddhists call it detachment. I'm not attached to the results. I know what is mine to do, and so I do the process. I start the process. I start the activity into motion, and I trust that the activity takes care of itself. See, when I plant a plant in my garden, when I plant a tulip bulb in my garden in November, I trust that well, here it's February, and in other places it's in April, that I'm going to get a tulip or a bunch of tulips down the road, because I trust the process. I don't sit there and go, how can I work that process? How can I make it happen just exactly? I want this tulip to bloom on exactly April the 3rd at 2:45 p.m. in the afternoon. And unless it does that, I'm not going to be happy. Right? I'm about to become a grandfather in a couple of weeks for the first time in my life, biologically speaking. Thank you. Some of you have met my older daughter, Eileen, and it turns out that the baby has a slightly different schedule and perhaps even a slightly different process than everybody else had in mind for the baby. Okay? And have you ever known, how many moms do we have in the room? Were you in control of the process, and did it all work out exactly the way you wanted? Yeah, right? Ha ha ha. So this is how spirit is. We know we're filled with spirit. We're in a way pregnant with this divine energy. But we also have to let it flow through us in the way that it does. We have to let it flow through us in its nature and to create. Oftentimes we get attached to it has to be perfect. Anybody besides me perfect? How did you put that yesterday? It's everything is perfect, but perfection is an illusion. Something to that effect? Progress, not perfection. Years ago, I had a friend of mine, when I was living back in Connecticut, went down to New York City, and she knew I loved Asian sake sets. And so she was going to buy me a nice Christmas present of an Asian sake set. And she was in this shop in China, the Chinatown area of New York, and she was looking at these, and she had this beautiful kind of gold inlaid, gold painted sake set, and she was looking at it closely, and she goes, oh, there's kind of mistakes in this. She said this to the shop owner, and the shop owner very carefully takes it out of her hand, puts it down, and he says, this is hand painted. These are hand painted. They're a little more expensive. Over here are the machine made ones. You might like these better. I still have the gold leaf hand painted sake set. We have an agenda for how life should be perfect, how it should be, right? Have you ever noticed it isn't? Yeah. We pay extra. We pay extra for hand-painted art objects. We pay extra for handmade clothing that have slubs and flubs in them. We pay extra for that. Guess what? We paid extra to be here on this world that isn't perfect. You and me chose to be here. We could have been anywhere else, but we chose to be here, where we get to play. In the Hebrew tradition, the Jewish tradition, there's the idea of the Kabbalah. And in the Kabbalah, it's said that this world, this particular world, is a sphere of existence that has been shattered. And ours is to put it back together. That we have collectively agreed to take that on, to put that back together. the imperfections, the shattering is part of the joy, part of the love, part of the growth, part of the spiritual aspect, part of the perfection of this life. And so if you hold yourself or anybody else as they have to be perfect, let it go. Let it go. Because you know what? You and me, we already are perfect. We just don't do it the way other people think we should do it. Have you noticed? There's always somebody who knows how we should do it. I want to read a story from, we've been working with the book, Creating a World That Works for All. It's the inspiration book for this whole series. And in it, there's a wonderful story that Sharif Abdullah talks about the difference between contemplating and acting, taking action. And I want to read that for a moment. It's called The Sword and the Path. And what I want you to understand, the sword in this is our heart. The sword are our hearts. The people of a mythical old town find it necessary to cut a path to a new town. Some residents are sharpening their long swords. Each edge is already finely sharpened, but still they hone them. Each day they are at their wheels, grinding away at their blades, refining their swords even further. After they get their blades to a microscopic sharpness, they sharpen even further. To the suggestion that they actually use their swords to cut a path to the new town, they reply, "We're not ready. Our swords are not sharp enough yet." In another place of the old town, another group of people is actually blazing a path to the new town. They are hacking through the underbrush. It's slow, tedious, dangerous, mainly because their cutting blades are dull, rusted, and in some instances even broken. Many people tear at the underbrush with their bare, bleeding hands. They curse the slow going, the torturous pace. To the suggestion that they take a little time to sharpen their swords, some say, "What swords? What heart?" Others protest, "What good would that do? Anyway, this job is too important to take the time to sharpen our blades." For some of us, we don't take the time to sharpen our blades. We don't take the time to work on ourselves, to really move ourselves into it. Others of us get addicted to that working ourselves and working ourselves and working ourselves and working ourselves, working ourselves and working and working and working and working and working and working. None of you, but you know people like that, right? Okay. There has to be the balance between the point where we start to say, you know, I've done enough work. I can hear the voice of Spirit wisely enough and well enough that I'm going to allow it to move through me. I'm going to use my heart, my sword, to cut a new path. So the flow of consciousness carries its movement into action. The word becomes flesh. And we begin that process by going within. We clear away the blocks, because if we don't clear away the blocks again, we bring them with us. And then we create the same old world all over again. So we have to take the time to clear away the blocks and to get, guys, I'm sorry, and to get directions. I know it's hard for me, but we have to get directions. But then we have to act upon it and take steps. And again, we can't see the whole path, but we have to take the steps. We walk forward in faith. We allow that faith to guide us. So I want to anchor this in with a little guided meditation process. So I'm going to ask Damien to put on a little bit of background music. And I'm going to invite you to get comfortable in your chair, to take in a deep breath, and if you feel comfortable, to gently close your eyes. And just let yourself relax into the chair. Taking in another deep breath. And just letting it go. If you have a to-do list, imagine yourself stacking it up by the front door. The ushers will hand it to you on your way out. If you have a something already happened this morning list, imagine just putting that outside. You can pick it up on your way out. And just being present in this moment, just paying attention to the breath, the in-breath, the out-breath, and it is perfect exactly as it is. Just be aware of it. As you become present with the breath, allow it to carry you. In your imagination, allow yourself to be carried to a place that is for you a place of deep sacredness, where you feel safe, where you recognize the deep love that is all around you, where you feel connected to the infinite. Imagine in your mind that right now you're in such a place. Notice what it looks like and feels like and sounds like. Allow yourself to arrive there. Take a deep breath and ground yourself in that space. You take a moment to just relax. In this sacred space, you feel your deep connection to the oneness, to the infinite intelligence, the infinite wisdom, the infinite love of the universe. Be aware of that. Be aware of your own divine nature, completely connected to the one divine nature, the one source. And into this beautiful space, into this infinite connection, this infinite oneness with the one, I invite you to float a question. And that question is, what is mine to do? What is mine to do here? What is mine to do now? In my life, whether it's large or small, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? What is the energy of the infinite that wants to come through me now into my life? And as that answer begins to bubble to the surface, to your awareness, you ask one other question, and that is, what is mine to release? So that I can allow this energy to move through me. What is mine to let go of? Knowing that whether we've heard an answer now or whether it comes later, we've asked the question and the answer will show up, does show up. I invite you to move into a state now of willingness to have that happen through you. Whatever it is that is mine to do, I am willing to do it. I'm willing to let it be expressed through me. And I am willing to let go of what has held me back in the past, what might have been in the way. I'm willing to let go of my fears and my doubts, my hurts, my anger. I'm willing to let go of needing to know how and trusting that the infinite universe knows how. I'm willing to be the place where this moves into form in just joyous clarity. I say yes. Yes to this divine, yes to the blessing that it is to me and to all others. I surrender into the highest and greatest good, into the excellence of spirit that I am. It is really the truth of me. I let my smallness fall away. I stand in my power, being the point of expression of the infinite one. in, ground it in your body, allow it to move through every cell, every atom, every subatomic particle, all the spaces in between. And very gently, with gratitude for whatever information, whatever answer you've received, whatever willingness you've experienced, begin to allow your awareness to return to this building, to this place, to the chair you're sitting in, knowing that you can return to that sacred space whenever you want to. It's always there, it's always with you. And for now, we're going to become aware of our bodies sitting in this chair in this room in the Center for Spiritual Living, Reading. Taking another deep breath to ground the body, perhaps wiggling your fingers or toes, or stretching a little bit, or rolling your shoulders, to be fully grounded back in your body. And when you're ready, very gently opening your eyes and being fully present here. This week for our spiritual practice, I invite you to do two things. The first one is to continue to sit with that question. What is mine to do? Those of you who've been working with Mae McCarthy's Path to Wealth, you kind of ask this question every morning by asking your CSO, your Chief Spiritual Officer, what is my lead? What is mine to do? And so to continue to sit with that question, to take the time and listen for the answer, and to recognize that it may not always come right away. It may come when you're in the shower. It may come when you're driving down the street. It may come when you're walking the dog. It may come, at any other time doing the dishes. But know that it will come because we've asked. So that's the first part. And the second part then is take a step every day. Every single day, take a step in the direction in which you're guided. Taking just a step. Doesn't have to be the whole thing. Just take a step in the direction in which you're guided and bring that energy that you want to recreate with you. So that's the spiritual practice. Listen and step. Listen and step. Are we willing to do that? Yes, me too. It will powerfully shift your life as we're willing to do that. I'm going to close with a reading from the Science of Mind textbook from Ernest Holmes. Be you doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. And that's from James. Ernest says, this should teach us not to make idle talk about our understanding. What we know, we can do. What we cannot do, we only suppose. We only think we know. Unused knowledge is suppositional and unreal. It is an assumption, and as such never produced anything. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, but those who do the will of truth enter into the kingdom, enter into the highest consciousness. So I invite you this week, as you listen, to also then be doers of the truth and to take that in. So let's move into prayer. Knowing that there is that one infinite presence that is both the being and the doing, the yin-yang energy of the universe, that one infinite, beyond all the names, beyond even our concepts of what it is. The biggest concept that any of us have of God is completely accurate and not big enough. We simply allow ourselves to be aware of that. That there is only this one. Perfect love, perfect wisdom, perfect harmony, and infinite good. That because it is all that there is, you and I, each of us, must be and are one of it. Right now we are already one of it. We don't have to do anything more. We don't have to be anything more. We are it. And so I speak my word that each of us opens up to that awareness and allows that truth of who we are, the divinity of who we are, to sing through us, to express through us, that we are the place where the Word is made flesh, where the consciousness of the divine, the highest and greatest good, moves into our lives and we say yes to it. We are willing to let Spirit be our source. And we are willing to let Spirit spread itself all over our lives in every detail. However small, however large we think it is, it's all just life to the infinite. And so we open ourselves up, saying yes, being willing to be the place that moves that into expression. Being willing to take the steps that we are guided to take with absolute faith, with absolute sureness, knowing that as we say yes to Spirit, the universe says yes to us. And so in deep trust of that infinite source, we move into gratitude, knowing that our yes blesses us, blesses our own life, blesses the lives of those around us, and continues to create a world that works for all to a greater and greater and greater extent. We say thank you, we say yes. We release that word into the law, that process that knows the how. We don't have to worry about the how, thank you God. We simply let the universe that knows how do the how for us. We just simply walk the steps and allow the process to work, just as the flower blooms without our say-so. It is such a beautiful, delightful, delicious process. We're so fortunate to be engaged in it. And in that consciousness we say we let it be, and we affirm it by saying, and so it is.